Lately, I've been thinking about the Russian indie game, No, I'm Not a Human. A first-person horror game set in an apocalypse, where you're not only forced to quarantine due to climate change, but also to let strangers into your house, because there's an epidemic of skinwalkers, simply referred to as visitors, lurking among humans and attack people who are alone. Unfortunately, the stranger seeking shelter can just as easily be one of the aforementioned visitors, and it's up to you to analyze and judge who is human and who is not. The game has attained quite the following for the past few months, along with a loyal fan base, and there are many things to love about this game. The excellent horror format where the scares don't come from cheap jump scares, otherwise plaguing the genre, but from your own paranoia as to who is human and who are the dreaded visitors. An interesting and unique story, which is not only structured, leaving you asking just the right amount of questions about the world, but also has some complex themes about prejudice. But what I want to talk about today are the characters of the No I'm Not a Human universe and the unique art direction of the game. For you see, a core aspect of the game is the player testing the people at their door to see if they're human or not. And it can be hard to tell just by looking at them, since all the characters have unusual features. Unlike the majority of characters in video games, it can be jarring at first and you may find the characters uncanny to look at. But after some time, you kinda get used to their strange features, and you may even begin to find beauty in their weirdness. Which is why I want to show my appreciation for No I'm Not a Human by drawing its colorful cast of characters in my style. Not only as a love letter to the game, but as a great exercise for myself as an artist. For you see, plenty of artists like myself have a habit of sticking to conventional beauty standards in our art, intentionally or not, and it can really stagnate our growth as creatives. The fact that I primarily illustrate pin-ups isn't an excuse for my art to be formulaic, and like I said previously, I think plenty of these characters have a unique beauty to them. I hope this experiment will help me create more varied characters in future projects. But it's mostly just an excuse to yap about the game I've been thinking about non-stop. So, without further ado, let's get drawing. After our lovely neighbor, aka the tutorial character, leaves our house, we are met with an unusually tall, scrawny man with an uncanny obscured face and an even worse attitude. But don't let first impressions fool you, because the bar guy is one of the few guaranteed humans you'll meet, and he'll serve as an example as to what typical humans will be like, at least in terms of the game's mechanics. The bar guy is a broken man, hurt by the world long before everything came to an end, and to cope, resorts to alcohol to ease the pain. Despite his rudeness at the door, and his story of crashing out at the bar, he's shown to be quite polite to the player. The man at the bar is a great showcase of the core themes of the game, a scary appearance and threatening demeanor meant to throw off the player due to our prejudice. But sometimes, humans are just hurt, broken. Not many people struggling with alcoholism are going to be bursting with joy, nor be the friendliest. But it doesn't take away from their humanity. I think he has a strong character design, with his scrawny appearance being quite striking. From his elongated face, with ruby hooded eyes dragged down by distinct cheekbones, to his equally large, slender hands, fitting for a man standing as tall as him. Even with his slouched posture, he still stands tall among the other characters you let in. The second character to stand at our door asking for shelter from the sun. Despite her asymmetrical posture, her otherwise anxious nature is quick to fool most first-time players. But unfortunately, unlike the bar guy, Cashier Girl is meant to represent a typical visitor, showing all the signs as they're announced to us through the news. As you talk to this strange girl with each passing day, it becomes more apparent that her story, while genuinely tragic, has a lot of holes in it and makes little sense. But you also come to realize that even she has no idea that she is indeed a visitor, And as the both of you find out, she sinks more and more into madness. The cashier girl demonstrates that looks and even first impressions can be deceiving, and yet it also becomes apparent that these visitors are a bit more complex than what is initially thought. She obviously means no harm and has no idea what is even happening to her, which raises the question as to what the visitors really are. Because her story could potentially imply that she got lost in the sun, and that is what ultimately turned her. But we don't know. While she's obviously innocent looking in comparison to most of the other characters, there is something quite eerie about her. From her disproportionate shoulders to her various visitor symptoms she possesses, which can vary in levels of severity. There's also something to be said about how she demonstrates the effectiveness of the game's horror, with the dread and paranoia you start to feel as you come to the conclusion that no, she's not a human. From here on out, most other characters will appear randomly, and you have a chance for the stoner to knock on your door. He is one of the many characters who can either be or not be human, so it's up to you to decipher if this weed-smoking, movie-loving slacker can be trusted. The stoner is by all means kind of a societal failure, spending most of his time prior to the apocalypse getting high, partying with friends, and avoiding employment like the plague. He means no harm, but will progressively get more dissatisfied with the player character's serious tone and lack of media to consume. He also demonstrates the mechanic of checking for visitor signs in a fascinating yet genius way. One of the first symptoms you're told to be aware of is if the individual has red shut eyes. But if your stoner has red eyes when you go to check, he is indeed a human. Because why would an obviously intoxicated guy not have red shut eyes? While this contradiction of the game's gimmick is mostly humorous, it goes to show the importance of analyzing each character and their individual quirks. The design of the character is also quite perfect, with his unkempt dirty dreadlocks framing the droopy, obviously baked eyes, his prominent nose, and his relaxed yet intense smile. His chubby white build, covered by a loosely fitting Hawaii shirt and a basic white t-shirt, one look and you instantly know what his character is all about. Within the first few days, you're most likely going to see the fortune teller at your doorstep. This strange, superstitious lady is yet another character who is randomized and has some traits meant to fool the player. While her spiritual beliefs may be a turnoff for many, the psychic lady might be one of the most genuinely positive characters you can invite into your house. Her dialogue mostly centers around her journey of discovery and finding meaning in her life, which is honestly quite refreshing in a world filled with melancholy and despair. She hopes to reach the main character and help him find meaning in his life too. Like previously mentioned, the fortune teller has some tough visitor signs that can be difficult to decipher, with special attention to her aura photo. You see, it is actually her visitor form that has the brighter aura. Meanwhile, the human one has a noose around its neck. This small detail helps to humanize her more, implying that there might be more beneath the surface than this overly positive persona that she has built up. The wiki also mentions several different readings as to what the noose could symbolize, and all are equally interesting, so I'll just show them on screen. I have noticed that she is a fan favorite to many players due to her atypical design in a grotesque world. I think this is to show that despite the world ending, she remains positive and continues to wear her jewelry and do her makeup. Her identity is a huge aspect of her character, so much so that she prioritizes her persona even during the apocalypse. Suddenly, you are met with a strange man with his mouth sewn shut and unable to explain himself. It is easy to brush him off as a strange visitor. But no, he is indeed yet another guaranteed human meant to trick the protagonist due to his strange appearance. Letting him in, you come to realize that this poor man has not only had his mouth sewn shut, but he is also a foreigner, unable to speak the language of the other characters. And though he wishes to go back home, Due to the apocalypse, all public transport is inaccessible. He's stuck here. Many of the human characters share the same trait of seeming off at first, but as you get to know them, you come to realize that there's always an explanation behind their abnormalities. However, despite seeming strange at the door, Wireface has no visitor signs. He is simply a foreigner, and unfortunately, that can be enough for many to dehumanize you. There's also some implied queerness to his character if you squint. Having drawn on eyebrows, hair that at some point seemed to have been styled and retained some product in it, not to mention his earring, which is apparently a giveaway in the time period the game is set in. On another note, the reason he's even in a country that so heavily discriminates against people like him is that he is supposed to meet up with an alleged guy friend. A haunting woman knocks at your door, carrying what seems to be either a sick or deceased individual. She lets you know that this is indeed the corpse of her dead husband, and unable to let go or find a proper burial for him, carries him on her back. Talking to the widow, she will tell you about her life prior to the epidemic and about her relationship with her partner. Her husband had been captured and contained by FEMA. Suffering from an unknown illness, the husband unfortunately passed away while quarantined. Unable to accept this fate, she snuck in and took his body, refusing to let his soul rest at such a dire place. While it is an odd sight to see a person carrying a corpse around, especially during times when you are on the lookout for what are essentially skinwalkers, this lady is yet another human. Even symptoms, such as her bloodshot eyes, can be explained by excessive crying. Another noteworthy test is the aura photography, which depicts the spirit of her deceased husband hugging her soul. The widowed woman has an equally haunting yet enticing design. You can tell that at some point she had a normal life, but now her thinning hair and drained features tell a story of a deeply hurt and broken woman. Let's go over some more randomized characters. The Inajeka guy is a newly added character from the recent update, and when he first stands at your door, you are met with a hyperactive oddball with a caffeine addiction. This energy drink addict, unlike many other characters we have met so far, feels more like a joke character than anything else, and has quite the humorous spectacle. His high energy nature causes him to move around maniacally as you talk to him, and he mentions never staying at the same place for too long. The comedic aspect of his character is also prevalent in his traits, which change depending on whether or not he's a visitor. For example, no matter what, his teeth are stained green due to his energetic consumption, but while his entire mouth glows an unnatural neon green when he's a visitor, his human counterpart will have damaged teeth. Generally speaking, his visitor signs are more likely to dramatize his addiction. In comparison to many other characters you meet throughout the game, this caffeinated goofball is fairly normal in his appearance, if you ignore his green skin. His silliness comes from his accessories, such as his pink Gustle hat and stereotypical tracksuit. He's a funny guy to have around, and it's a shame that he'll eventually leave your house. Yet another character introduced in the update, and at first glance, she makes quite the impression. Her tattooed body and eyes, her excess amount of piercings, and alternative hairstyle could easily be the result of body modifications, but in a world currently built on assigning judgment upon the unusual, it definitely doesn't make her situation easier. Despite her alternative appearance, she's actually fairly ordinary, with a sharp mind and a history working at the radio station. Through her dialogue, it is heavily implied that she is an interviewer on TV prior to entering your house. She isn't one to fall for propaganda other characters fall victim to, and her analytical ways of thinking can be refreshing in a house filled with oddballs. The reporter can be very difficult to spot whether or not she's a visitor, since she only has two distinctive traits, which both can easily be missed. For example, through a dialogue, we learn that her body modifications were done a while ago. However, if you haven't had this conversation with her, it can be easy to overlook her bleeding gums due to her visitor self saying her teeth just got sharpened. Her distinct appearance makes her recognizable among this already large cast, with traits such as her black scleras and alien-like facial mold being especially memorable. Her design is also quite subversive, considering how characters with her visual design are usually portrayed, so it's nice that she's fairly ordinary. Despite the climate getting warmer by the day, here stands a little guy with a large winter coat who looks to be freezing to death. This is yet another guaranteed visitor, likely meant to put a false sense of security onto the player due to his otherwise innocent demeanor. He will express an intense sense of loneliness and emptiness within, which causes him to feel distant from other people. Chatting with him further, he will express a need to share a secret with you that is likely the cause of his suffering. This introduces one of the many fantastical elements of No, I'm Not a Human, because this secret turns out to be a black hole within his stomach, which not only sucks away all his warmth and joy, but also ends the life of anyone who sees it. The black hole at the center of his body definitely sparks one's curiosity slightly more than his other obvious visitor traits. What adds to the tragedy of the code guy is the fact that the death he brings seems accidental, and like the cashier girl, it raises the question as to what the visitors really are. Although he is visually as strange as the rest of the cast, with his blue skin and his sunken cheeks, there's also something precious about him, even cute, be it his assumed innocence or his feline adjacent eyes. The man in the coat is simply a curious case, and a fan favorite for many reasons. Let's end this roster of weirdos by talking about one of the few characters with a unique ending who also enters the player's house. On a rare occasion, you will have a chance for the seductive woman to stand at your doorstep, luring you with suggestive invitations. As the night passes, you will start to notice an increase in the size of her stomach, but it will be gone by the morning. Confronting her about it, she will gaslight you with empathy, saying that the player must be concerned for the people they're hosting, or perhaps dealing with something more personal. It is vague as to whether or not her comfort is genuine, or if she's completely aware of what's happening to her. If the seductive woman is a visitor, letting her stay in your bedroom throughout the nights, she will give birth to the child of doom, which can be found hiding around the house after its birth. This will trigger a unique ending where the protagonist is revealed to be a religious, chosen one, destined to save the world from its corruption. It's one of the game's many fantastical endings, and it's definitely unique among them. Her design is a fascinating case too, because unlike the rest of the cast, this fatal lady is meant to be conventionally attractive, having a curvaceous figure and luscious ginger hair. And yet, she still fits perfectly within the universe, having the same beaten down look to her as the other characters. She's obviously beautiful, but in a way that feels real. I've never seen any other game where the characters look quite the way they do in No, I'm Not a Human. And thematically, it's genius given the theme of the game. Each character challenges your prejudice and the way you judge your fellow man, making you question every aspect of a person, but also your own judgment. They're handled in a way that feels so natural. It was rough to only paint 10 characters, seeing how there are so many incredible characters in this game. I wish I could have included characters such as the Vigilante, the Twins, the Bearded Huntsman, Big Mama, and many more. Hell, as I posted these online, characters I never expected to have a fan base kept getting recommended, such as the Sleepless Man or the Creepy Guy. In hindsight, I probably should have included more diverse characters than what I did, because a lot of these are definitely not the most unconventional characters out of the bunch. But hey, if you want to see more of these, I might make a part 2. I'm gonna be at my very first artist alley at J-popcon in Copenhagen, and if you're interested in getting a sticker of any of the characters drawn in this video, they will be sold there, and perhaps at future conventions I will attend. Thank you so much for watching till the end.